Before the world ends in fire, before beasts rise from the sea, before symbols become terrifying and cosmic, the book of Revelation does something unexpected. It speaks to people, not to nations, not to empires, not to abstract humanity, but to specific communities, with names, with flaws, with internal fractures, 7 churches. And that matters more than most people realize. Because Revelation doesn't begin by describing the collapse of the world. It begins by diagnosing the condition of identity under pressure. And that tells us something important. Before systems collapse, before societies break apart, something quieter happens first. People lose clarity about who they are. When most people think of Revelation, they imagine chaos. They imagine destruction, fear, divine anger, cosmic punishment. But if you read carefully, slowly, without rushing to conclusions, you notice that the text doesn't start by accusing the outside world. It starts by turning the mirror inward. It asks uncomfortable questions, not about them, but about us. And that alone should make us pause. Because whenever a text begins with introspection instead of accusation, it's trying to change something deeper than behavior. It's trying to touch identity. Let's ground this in reality. These churches weren't metaphors at first. They were real communities living in Asia Minor, under Roman rule. They weren't powerful. They weren't influential. They weren't safe. They lived under political pressure, economic uncertainty, social marginalization, cultural hostility, and on top of that, they were trying to form an identity that didn't fully belong to the dominant system. That's a difficult place to live psychologically, because when survival is at stake, identity becomes negotiable. You start asking questions like, how much can I adapt without losing myself? How much resistance is too dangerous? How visible should I be? How honest can I afford to be? Sound familiar? Here's the first major pattern Revelation reveals. Pressure doesn't create character. Pressure reveals it. The 7 churches are not condemned equally. They are not praised equally. Each one is addressed differently, because each one responds to pressure differently. And that's where this becomes disturbingly modern. The first church is praised. They work hard. They endure. They resist corruption. From the outside, they look solid. But then comes the sentence that changes everything. You have abandoned the love you had at first. In other words, you're doing the right things, but you've forgotten why you started. This is the pattern of functional identity, where life becomes about discipline without joy, consistency without meaning, correctness without presence. You're not broken. You're not immoral. You're just empty. And this is one of the most common psychological states today. People who wake up early, work hard, improve themselves, stay productive, but feel strangely disconnected from their own lives. Not because they failed, but because they turned purpose into performance. How many people today do everything right, follow the rules, optimize their lives, yet secretly feel numb? The danger isn't collapse. The danger is losing your first love without noticing. And once meaning becomes mechanical, burnout isn't far behind. This church isn't criticized. It's suffering. They are poor. They are persecuted. They are afraid. And the message they receive is not, try harder, be better, fix yourselves. The message is, do not fear, not because fear is irrational, but because fear, when left unchecked, reshapes identity. Under constant threat, people shrink. They stop thinking long-term. They stop dreaming. They stop becoming. Life becomes about survival. And survival mode is addictive because it feels responsible. But survival isn't the same as living. We live in an era obsessed with safety. Emotional safety, financial safety, social safety. And while safety matters, a life built entirely around avoiding pain slowly loses depth. Fear narrows the soul, and Revelation recognizes that. It doesn't shame fear. It warns against letting fear become your identity. This church lives where Satan's throne is. Strong language, symbolic language. It doesn't mean literal demons. It means power structures that dominate reality. This church survives by blending in. They don't resist openly. They adapt quietly. They tell themselves, this is just how things are. We're just being realistic. We can't change the system. And slowly, values blur. Beliefs become flexible. Convictions soften. Boundaries fade. Not through rebellion, through accommodation. This is the identity of corporate morality, algorithmic behavior, cultural conformity, where people don't believe deeply in anything, but repeat what's acceptable. Not because they agree, but because disagreement feels costly. The danger here isn't evil. It's gradual self-erasure. This church prides itself on love, on acceptance, on openness, and those are real virtues. But here's the warning. Love without truth becomes confusion. When everything is tolerated, nothing is transformed. This is the pattern of boundaries dissolved in the name of compassion, where people stop asking, is this good? And only ask, does this feel inclusive? This is painfully current. A culture where critique is labeled harm, disagreement is labeled violence, clarity is labeled intolerance. And while the intention is empathy, the result is moral disorientation. Revelation isn't against love. It's against love without direction. This one hits hard. You have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Not physically, not socially, spiritually, existentially. This is the identity built on appearance, on image, on branding, on reputation. From the outside, active, visible, successful. From the inside, disconnected, hollow, sleepwalking, social media culture, personal brands, curated lives, where visibility replaces vitality, and people confuse being seen with being alive. This church is warned not because it's evil, but because it's asleep. This church is small, weak, not impressive, and yet it's praised. Why? Because it remains aligned, not powerful, not influential, but coherent. This is the identity of integrity without recognition, doing the right thing, even when no one rewards it. People who live quietly, think deeply, refuse shortcuts. They don't trend, they don't dominate, but they endure. Revelation sees them, even if the algorithm doesn't. The most famous critique, neither hot nor cold. This isn't about passion. It's about self-sufficiency. This church says, we are rich. We need nothing. And that's the problem. Comfort creates the illusion of completeness. When life is easy enough, questions feel unnecessary. Depth feels optional. And slowly, hunger disappears. Late-stage comfort culture, where convenience replaces meaning, entertainment replaces reflection, stability replaces growth. Not because people are evil, but because they are numb. Look at the sequence. Fear, compromise, comfort, performance, image, tolerance, survival. These are not ancient problems. They are human patterns under pressure. And Revelation places them at the beginning for a reason. Because before the world collapses externally, it fractures internally. The 7 churches aren't about religion. They're about identity stress tests. They ask, who are you when pressure increases? What do you protect when resources shrink? What do you sacrifice to survive? Because systems don't fall first. People drift first. Revelation doesn't say, fix the world. It says, pay attention. Because collapse doesn't announce itself loudly, it begins quietly, in small compromises, in subtle numbness, in forgotten loves. And maybe the most uncomfortable truth is this. Before asking what's wrong with the world, we might need to ask, which church am I becoming?